Patch 10.2 has been revealed, 10.17 just dropped, WoW's leaders have spoken to the press, and a whole load more. It's a pretty stacked time for WoW. If you want the 10.2 lowdown, I'll link my full breakdown video of the patch based on the PTR and the developer interviews. For the rest though, well, watch on, we've got a lot to discuss. And our sponsor. School's back in season, which means that Raycon is having their annual back-to-school sale. And if you just go to buyraycon.com/Bellular or just click that link in the description box, you get 20% off site-wide, plus free shipping for a limited time only. And these, the everyday buds, they look and they sound fantastic. They are super comfy and they don't have like dangly stems hanging off your ears, and they stay in super solid all day. Like if I shake my head about, they're in there rock solid. And man, the battery life. They offer 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life, which is so much more than I've been used to. And that means they actually get through my whole workday without needing to charge. These are the features that I want for way less with my code, and they're like half the price or even less than comparable buds from other brands, and with their premium water and sweat resistance, it's good to know that they're just going to handle the delightful Northern Irish weather. They come as well with a wireless charging case, cable, 5 pairs of silicone tips as well, so you can get the perfect fit and that passive noise isolation. So check out Raycon's annual back-to-school sale. Go to buyraycon.com/Bellular or click the link in the description box for 20% off site-wide. We've all been accustomed to bad news lately, so here's something. Speaking to GameSpot, WoW's Vice President Holly said this: "For us, it's pretty staggering. It's a really noticeable change." What she's talking about here is player retention. And that's probably the single most important statistic for a game like WoW. And this is in the context of them speaking about our new content cadence. And according to Holly, the cycle of content every 8 weeks or so is going to continue, and they've also reinvented the team to make that happen. As for my take, broadly speaking, yeah, I believe it. I do believe that retention is real strong. Because for all the talk online, right, there are countless regular people who don't check fan sites, they don't watch YouTube or things like that, and they have had a hell of a lot more to do now than they have had at any recent point in the past. And you know what's funny? Traditionally, WoW is amazing at getting people in the door, but really bad at keeping them. Dragonflight, though, with its lower sales and brilliant retention, is kind of the opposite. Though, of course, because churn of users is the real killer, that being down, I think, is massive for the game's future. And as for me, well, I've barely had time to play, but I still am counted as a monthly active user this whole expansion, even if it is just filling out my adventure journal. What about you? Is your retention up? Okay, pirate speculation. You saw a whole bunch of it on the internet, and Mike Ybarra, president of Blizzard, said no pirates, which is kind of curious. Now, why did people speculate pirate involvement? It's pretty simple. A whole bunch of store items, but let's not talk about that right now. Blizzard, though, dropped a whole bunch of lore about this guy named the Night Squall, who kind of seems like Euron Greyjoy from the books, if you know the Thrones reference. But basically, he's trying to assemble the single greatest pirate fleet ever to exist to sail beyond the Veiled Sea. So yeah, no wonder we thought pirates could be involved. Now, technically, they still may be. Dragonflight established that pre-Sundering Kalimdor was not Azeroth's only continent, and that does actually mean that yes, there is something beyond the Veiled and Forbidden Seas. You know I've talked about this lore a whole bunch of times, we don't need to do the whole thing again. Now, Xal'atath and Iridikron, they were clearly doing something, right? That something will probably, I'd say, lead us to the other side of the planet, to wherever this other continent is. So, if it's not South Seas, as is put forward by the Voidstorm MMO champion leak that I talked about recently, then the other side of Azeroth is looking more possible than ever. No pirates still does fit that. There are other reasons for us to go there. And the Night Squall character doesn't even have to show up for 11.0. I mean, the greatest pirate fleet ever assembled, happening to land on the shores of Avalorn. You can use Avalorn to give it some narrative spice. Avalorn, of course. We've talked about that before too, but that could easily end up being part of a big patch narrative. Anyway, in my opinion, we've got two directions. Number one, 2024, revamp. Number two, whatever the consequence of Iridikron's plan is, and that may involve the other side of the world. And by the way, on the world revamp, I've got a video out tomorrow for that, so stay tuned. Ian kind of confirmed what they're going to do. Chris Metzen then. A while ago I reported on Taliesin saying that on the grapevine he heard more details of Chris Metzen's involvement with the franchise. Well, Holly and Ian, in that GameSpot interview, have commented further on it. So, apparently the title of creative advisor actually doesn't do what Metzen's doing justice. Apparently he is a force in the office and is dedicated to making Warcraft all it can be. Now, Ian says that it's amazing to be able to bounce ideas off Metzen, especially because now the WoW team is going well beyond what Chris initially established with Warcraft 3. And really that is true. The Burning Crusade and Wrath were direct follow-ups of Warcraft 3 campaigns. Cataclysm picked up a character from Warcraft 1 and 2, Mop was certainly new, but it did follow Chen from the founding of Orgrimmar campaign in Warcraft 3. Warlords of Draenor was all Warcraft 1 and 2 orc lore made modern. Legion is capping off the core story of Warcraft 3. Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands then both happened after Metzen's 2016 departure, and while they did play around with some things that existed as of Warcraft 3, I think it's quite fair to say that they weren't always on the mark, right? They didn't always get what being part of Warcraft meant. This is what Ian ended by saying. Having Chris available as a resource and as a partner as we start to create new things, new places, and still have them feel quintessentially Warcrafty is something he is uniquely suited to do. And to me, that sounds like, number one, it's addressing one of the main weaknesses I found in the game, and I suppose number two, it sounds perfect. The true test of this, of course, will be whatever expansion they announce in just a few months at BlizzCon. 10.17 then. Broad reactions have been okay, fine, good. To do the main quest first, it's a lightning quick setup for our jaunt into the Emerald Dream. It's one that, well, it opens by showing the potential conflict between Farak and Veranoth. It then nearly immediately shows us that relationship going south, and then minutes later, quite literally, Veranoth joins us. Yeah, whiplash. It's very, very quick. It's so brisk that we don't really get to enjoy the journey of those two characters falling out, which is a shame, right? It's a missed opportunity. What I did see on screen I liked, even though, yes, I expected Veranoth to join us, but perhaps after a full patch worth of story. Clearly then, Blizzard wanted this to be quick. I presume so they can double down hard on Farak's descent into having way too much fun being evil. Because, by the way, that's Matt Mercer, and he's completely killing that role. If Farak, I guess, is at least as fun as the Razageth fight, I'll be pleased. Okay, Night Elves then. Yeah, the Night Elf Heritage Quest. I am very glad that I'm recording this after we've played the 10.2 campaign, at least 4 chapters of it. And that's because the Night Elf Heritage Quest doesn't really dive into the Night Elf heritage, right? It's short, it does some cool things, it's got some combat in it, but ultimately it's short, it's kind of mid, it doesn't really give Night Elves the love that Orcs got in 10.05. And I'm really glad we played 10.2, because 10.2's campaign gets Night Elves right, amongst quite a lot of other things. So this is not an ideal situation. I wish the Night Elf Heritage questline was not in this patch, and was later, and could have dove into their heritage. So yeah, we're not screwed. Night Elf stuff in 10.2 is good, but it is a shame. That being said, the set that you get is awesome, finally getting those glaives is awesome, and if you've wondered where the whole white and blue coloration of the Heritage Armor set is, the good news is, we are going to get it, just not right now. It's being worn by Sentinel NPCs in 10.2, and per Blizzard, they will basically show how we can get that when they're ready. So yeah, it'll be a 10.2 thing. Okay, Forsaken then. Largely, the Forsaken situation does seem pretty damn good. I'll be diving into that this week on the channel. For the Bronze Dragonflight, to me, it basically just seems like they're trying to really tie that up quick. It's almost to the degree where I'd personally wonder if they've scaled back plans there. And because I love time stuff, that's kind of disappointing. That being said, time stuff can be really problematic. It can be narratively risky. Maybe they made the right call. I don't know, what do you think? Beyond that then, of course, we've got the Minari Draenei quest dropping this week, actually. And per the data mining, we may even learn what the current ex-Legion forces are up to, which will certainly be interesting. Quick PSA, right, I dropped this leveling guide yesterday, you've definitely got to check it out, and you've got to check it out, like, now, before reset. It's pretty big, and the bit of news here that's good for you to know in general is that Burning Crusade and Wrath Time Walking is available from level 30, Cataclysm and Mop from 35, Wad from 40, and Legion from 45. That's pretty big, though. For some reason, you have to, like, drop out of Chromie time to be able to queue up for it. I don't know why it's done like that. Anyhow, as of this video coming out, there's only like a day or even hours left of Wrath Time Walking, and as you see in my leveling guide, that's a massive opportunity to get some levels on your characters. The Bobster's merry band of business buffoons are hard at work again. Moves have been made, something's been smeared over the walls, and players feel just a little bit nickel and dimed. Even those who did make purchases. So, on patch launch, the store corsages disappeared from people. The new paid transmog set has a broken hood and a belt that messes up the robe. But troublesome delivery aside, take a gander through this month's trading post and you will see something odd. A staff that costs 500 tender and is up for 60 days. That's twice normal. I wonder why. Oh, I know why. It's because Blizzard have also released the most expensive transmogrification on the store ever. Costing $25, the High Scholars Pack contains an oddly plain-looking set. I mean, compare this to the Flame Plume set that dropped and was a few bucks cheaper, right? A bit weird. Oh wait, it comes with 500 Traders Tender. Hang on, that is the amount of tender that you'll get from buying, say, the base edition of our next expansion come November, just to give you an idea of how much that they would value that amount of tender. It's also much more than the 200 bonus tender that we got with the Corsage set, so they're definitely ramping up there. And also remember that staff in the trading post that costs 500 tender. Yes. Remember that because it happens to match this transmogrification set perfectly. Now you could say, oh, this is a pro, what if you like the set but don't want the weapon? Spend the tenders however you want. But then I'll point out just how expensive this very middle-of-the-road set is at $25. And yeah, it's basically, you know, like the sort of the deconstructed sandwich, the IKEA effect, you know? Oh, assemble the full set yourself by buying the staff. Maybe you'll appreciate it more. Now, funnily enough, in that interview earlier, WoW's VP Holly did comment on this. She said the team is experimenting with ways to serve players who lack time for in-game activities but still want to earn some rewards. But she says that the trading post still does remain focused on rewarding players who are playing, not as a microtransaction store, but for some players. She says there are some players, they're not very vocal, but there are some who ask, I don't have time to get all my tenders. I'd buy some of this stuff. And Holly said, so, you know, we try it out. Yeah, they sure do. Funny enough, though, one decently good thing that I will say. There are new surge objectives, right? These are objectives that will become active 1 week before the end of the month that will allow people to catch up. So, while this is quite frustrating, it is nice to see that I suppose they are doing something to make sure that people don't have that bad experience of missing out. Big picture though, I would refer you to our Time is Money sort of documentary essay video we did last year, and I'd also remind you that this creates bad incentives, right? Because if the store items overall get more expensive, but you are in the same amount of tender, only for them to start selling you extra tender, I think we all know why. And by the way, if you add up those monthly tender totals, yeah, they have kind of increased. Is it all over, right? Is this the end? That's something loads of people have asked about 10 too. In interviews, staff basically said they could not say yes or no if 10.2 is the final major patch of the expansion, but they did say that the story will continue. That they could say for sure. In a way, that's an odd thing to say, because patch 10.3 existing would be good news to the players, so why not say it? Either they don't want to for just PR reasons, right? Managing their key announcements. It could be up in the air, right? There's also that. Or perhaps this is the final major patch and they just don't want the headlines. Now, I will point out that Farak drops a mount for ahead of the curve, and that's something that is only really done for the final boss of an expansion. But then again, Blizzard are in a bit of a habit of breaking from norms these days. Anyway, look, at minimum, I think you can expect this from your WoW sub. Patch 10.2.5 and 10.2.7, right? Both containing narrative and other things. Likely, I would say, the Brawlers Guild coming back. I would also expect, at minimum, a Season 4 that is similar to the final season of Shadowlands. Plus, of course, a pre-patch, a full expansion launch, and potentially patch 11.0.5. So, you know what? If that's one of the worst case scenarios and we don't get a 10.3, big picture, it's a hell of a lot better than, like, actually any other years, really. So it's actually pretty good. And finally, one or two things to run you through. First, listen to this.
Just let me in.
Now, listen to this.
Just let me in.
Kind of interesting, right? The version of the 10.1.7 cinematic that they posted online versus the one that we later found in-game. And the big question is, what are those other voices? Is that Farak tapping into the Shadow Flame? Is it him being corrupted? Is it an entity speaking through him from outside our reality? Because if it is, then that line, "let me in," I mean, come on, feels like a double meaning. And also, Secrets of Azeroth is out, the event holiday thing. And you know what? Actually, yeah, it seems to be pretty great. People are having a really good reaction. Thankfully, there's no FOMO involved in it, and it will be available for a week, I think, after the final clue drops on, I think it's the 12th day. So, you can hit up the Secrets Discord or Wowhead to get stuck into that. Okay, that is it for today's video. We have so much content coming out. Be ready for the World Revamp video tomorrow, and you can check out yesterday's video on how you can rocket your alts through those levels super fast. Thanks for watching. See you next time.